Cool. Well, why don't we get started? And I'd like to welcome Ronnie Miller here from MSU and other parts, who's been doing some really interesting research that relates to some of our conversations here about pollinator-friendly landscapes. She's also been doing outreach in the community and I'm sure has some interesting perspectives to share with us. I don't know exactly what she has in store, but I'll let you take it from here, Ronnie. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, let me try sharing. Oh, okay. Can everyone see that? Okay, good. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. Today I kind of want to talk about how everyone can be a scientist. This is a theme that I've kind of focused my PhD on, but I'll also talk about some research that I do, mostly focusing on bumblebees, and get into a little bit of community science. Perfect. So I want to start really, really basic and kind of specialize on bumblebees, but just starting off, we have bees and their lookalikes. Oh, one sec, I'm going to move the video so I can see. There we go. So a couple of things bees have, they have four wings. They're often really hairy, which helps them be good pollinators. They'll have eyes on the side of their heads, and they usually have long antennae. Whereas wasps, which often get confused with bees, have a really narrow waist, and then most of the other things they also have in common, but they don't have as much hair as bees do. And then there are some flies that are bee mimics, so they try to look like bees even though they can't sting, which is a benefit to them. But they only have two wings, and their antennae are usually really short and stubby. And all three of them can be pollinators. So bees are only pollinators. They don't really eat anything else. But wasps and flies are omnivores. So wasp adults will catch prey like caterpillars and feed it to their young. And then same thing with flies, larvae for flies, they will eat other things. So it's beneficial that they're pest control and pollinators. Now, I hope you were paying attention because we're going to do a little quiz. But I just want you can put in the chat or you can shout it out loud. Which one of these do you think is a bee? So keeping in mind the antenna, the wings, the hairiness.
B.
Yeah, okay, that's good. We're getting some bees. The bee is B. Okay. All right. Oh, my slide's frozen. There we go. You're correct. So the insect on the left is a robber fly. It's actually a predator, but it looks like a bumblebee to try to blend in and fool its prey. It has two wings, and then you can't really see the antenna, and its eyes are really big. And then the insect on the right is an eastern carpenter bee. So they're really hairy. Their butt, it's not really called a butt, but their butt is shiny, but mostly they're hairy. All right, next one. We have three here. Extra points if you can tell me what each one is, but which one of these is a wasp? Ooh, we have some different answers here. Maybe I made this too easy. The answer is also B. The wasp is the letter B, I should say. Let me go next. So the first one is a fly. It has two wings, short antennae. The second one is the wasp, and then the third one is actually a bee. So it's really hairy underneath, but it does look like a wasp. All that to say, bees are very diverse and they can be all different colors. They can be blue and green. They can be small. They can be big. There's 20,000 species in the world. And a lot of people know the honeybee, but honeybees are social, and 90% of bees are actually solitary, so they live by themselves. So bees have a wide range of diversity. And this is a really good, I think it's a PDF. You can just look up common bees in Michigan, and it has all of the bees in Michigan. I use this as like a quick guide to identify bees, and I usually send this to people because I think they do a really good job of getting those characteristics. And there's more photos on the actual PDF. I kind of had to snip this down a bit. Getting a little bit into my work, so these are all bumblebees. And another reason why diversity matters is all 6 of these are bumblebees, but on the top left, the gray is old records, and then the red is present. So 2000, I think until 2019 is when this was published. So the top left bee is a rusty patch bumblebee. This bee has not been seen in Michigan since the 1990s. The top right bee is the common eastern bumblebee. The entire state of Michigan is red. It has been seen everywhere, but that's actually not its old records. So it has expanded in range and increased in numbers. All of these are bumblebees, but they have reacted very differently. Some are extinct and some are increasing in range. So it's really important that we know the difference between bees. And then there's similar trends for the bees on the bottom. Some increases, some decreases. Getting into my work. So I have about 24 sites across Michigan, and they are grouped in threes. So in each set, there's a natural farms and cities paired together. And I'm looking at bumblebee communities. I'm also looking at what flowers are they using, and I'm testing pesticides they're exposed to. So the colored dots are Lansing, and I believe I met Leroy at the Bircham Solar Park, which is the blue dot there. So a typical day for me, it takes about an hour for me to do a bumblebee sample. We're kind of running around with our nets looking for bumblebees. We catch them and then we put them in a little vial, and they go on ice packs, which puts them to sleep mostly. That way we can photograph them because they're very wiggly, so it's helpful that they're asleep. And then they get released. We also do like a 100-meter long transect to identify what plants are blooming, and then we count and measure them to calculate floral available resources. So what we found in 2023, found over 10 species of bumblebees in Michigan, and there are 19 total in the state. Some of them only occur in the UP, and I don't sample in the UP, so I'll never encounter them. But we found 10 this year. And of course, the common eastern bumblebee was the most common, followed by the two-spotted bumblebee and the brown-belted, which they are also the most common. So this is exactly what we would expect. But we found some exciting things. We found some vulnerable bumblebees. So the golden northern bumblebee, which is the top right photo, is currently listed as vulnerable, and we have found that in the last 2 years of sampling. The perplexing bumblebee, which is called that because it's so hard to identify. They do all different kinds of colors. They're just difficult bees to work with. The American bumblebee, which is currently endangered in the state, and that's the purple lined photo. And we found 2 of those in Battle Creek, which has not been seen in that area since 1927, which was really exciting that they're still there and we can do some more conservation in that area and try to keep their population growing. And then the yellow-banded bumblebee is imperiled, and we have seen some of those in Mount Pleasant. Again, we want to get this news out there so that we can do a little bit more conservation. And I have on the bottom is kind of like the state list ranking, so it's like possibly extinct to stable populations. So that's all for my research. I could share a lot more, but just a quick little summary of what we did this year. And now I want to talk about community science. So Leroy mentioned I did some Pumpkin Fest. I've done a lot of different events at MSU. I think the most exciting one was Bee Palooza. So I actually organized this event this year, and it was the first time it came back since 2019. So it wasn't my invention, I just brought it back. But we had lots of different things like bumblebee safaris. We sold native plants. We taught kids different things about bees and other pollinators. And then the bottom right photo is my favorite. So If you didn't know, male bees do not have stingers, it's just the females. So what we do is we put male bees in a tent and we let people pet them. We call it like a bumblebee petting zoo. And there are a lot of people that are afraid of bees that will pet a bee and their like life is changed. And I think that's just the biggest goal of my work. And I want to say, here's what you can do as well if you'd like to. How can our backyards and other green spaces help bees? So the number one thing is to increase the number and the diversity of flowering plants. Of course, this is their food resource. So if they don't have food, that's not good. For bees, there's typically a bottleneck. So in the spring and the fall, they don't have as much flowers because that's the beginning and the end of the season. So planting early and late blooming flowers is the best. Another thing is nesting sites for bees. So I mentioned that bees are solitary. A lot of bees nest underground. So they'll build a tunnel. Some will live in cavities. So the log there has some holes. There are bees that live in wood. So it's really important that we increase their nesting habitat as well as their food resources. And then lastly is getting involved in monitoring programs. So the photo on the right is called Queen Quest. A bunch of people go out in the fall and they're looking for overwintering bumblebee queens who will go under the leaf litter for the winter and then they emerge in the spring. To focus on community science, this top photo is from iNaturalist, and it's just their goal on increasing community science and why it's really important. So I'm only one person. I can go out and look for bumblebees, but this photo on the bottom is an American bumblebee, which again is the endangered bee, and the fairy bog mother, which I love that name, found this bee in Lansing. During my project, I didn't find the American bumblebee. So based on my data, it would say that it doesn't exist in Lansing. But this person took a photo of it, put it on iNaturalist, and found it. So that's really why community science is important. And this is just a clip of top 10 pollinators on iNaturalist. So we have the common eastern bumblebee, of course. We also have the honeybee, which is well known by people, but we also have some flies and ladybugs and different things like that. This is taken from Bumblebee Watch. So it's an app that is just Bumblebee focused, but their submissions do get sent to iNaturalist. And they recommend taking a photo with your location on. So that way when you upload the photo, it has that like geotag on it. And the photo of Michigan is where all of their observations are. So maybe we need to do an event in the UP because Detroit compared to the UP is lacking. We got to do some work up there. And there are so many different apps you can use to just generally post photos. There are other ways you can help bees. I think it's almost a good problem to have. There's a lot of ways to help bees. So I mentioned ground nesting bees, they need some help. A simple thing to help them would just be leaving a bare patch of soil in your backyard or somewhere like that so that they can nest in the soil that they need. Again, planting native flowers. There's also this new hot commodity called the bee hotel, which is the bottom right photo. So it's putting stems in different holes in wood for cavity nesting bees. They're solitary, but they will nest next to other bees as long as it's a separate cavity. And then Nomo May, I believe, was approved by, is it, I'm not sure if it's approved by Meridian, but one of the counties did it for the first time this year. So it's basically just waiting to mow in the beginning of spring to let some things flower before you chop them all off to give bees early spring food. And lastly, I want to know what matters to you. So I'm actually doing a survey. It will be launching in January, but if you scan this QR code, you'll just enter in some information so that I can send it to you. And this also is going to help bees because we want to make sure the things that we're doing for pollinator conservation is actually applicable to people that are going to do it. So I'll leave this up for a couple seconds, but I'm also going to drop a link in the chat. Okay. And I have some resources because I noticed in the last couple of meetings that was a big question. So this is a long list. Again, there's a lot of information. I think if there's one thing to take out of it, I have it underlined. Pollinators.msu.edu is where I direct a lot of people. It has information on native bees. It has information on beekeeping and a lot of different things at MSU. And then after that is the Xerces Society. And the Xerces Society does insect conservation. They do all kinds of insects, but they do pollinators as well. And they have a program called Bee City and Bee Campus, where they approve different cities and campuses to promoting bees, whether they have a lot of flowers or they do a lot of outreach. And MSU is officially a bee campus now. And then for native Michigan plants, I have Wild Type, which sells whole plants, and then the Michigan Wildflower Farm, which only sells seeds, but they both work with each other and they are native to Michigan. So I think those are really good resources if you want to increase your plant diversity. And again, community science. So Xerces has a page of different projects. So does MNFI. So they'll have specific projects where you can submit data directly to someone's experiment and then you know it's getting used. Versus if you just post on iNaturalist, it's just there for fun sometimes, which is okay. Okay, so I hope you can see that we have a lot of fun with all these photos. We have too many selfies with bees, but it's my favorite part. So I want to thank everyone in my lab and also my funding resources. And that's all. Thanks for listening. There's my email, website, and Twitter if you use it.
Wow, that was very impressive, Ronnie. Thank you
It's
so
a lot
much.
of info.
In 15 minutes, that's super
Yeah.
impressive. I'm sure people have questions, so
Yeah.
I'll mute myself and let people speak.
Ronnie, I'm wondering, do bees like any sort of flower, or are they kind of selective and picky?
So it depends on the bee. A lot of bees that do well, like the common eastern bumblebee and honeybees, are generalist, so they will eat almost anything. There are bees that only eat one thing. So the squash bee only eats, well, I guess I shouldn't say eats the squash because that sounds wrong. They only pollinate the flowers of the squash. So that limits them to squash and pumpkins. But that's all they eat. That's all they can forage on. So it really depends on the bee. Sarah, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I got two questions. So when you say plant early, what's early? Because I'm trying to be better about planting flowers and stuff, but I planted crocuses and then we had an early frost years ago and I was like, well, what's the point of planting it? I mean, I get the point, but like if you plant early, but then they just keep dying from like a frost or whatever, then like when you say early, like the early flowers, when it says it on, like when you buy a bowl, whatever, how do you, I guess my question is, how do we help to do that if we have a frost that just ends up killing them? Are we still helping?
Um, Unfortunately, I think that might be after effects of climate change, so that's
Yeah,
hard to navigate.
yeah.
What I mean by early is mostly pre-July. So July is the
Oh,
peak of flowering bloom, where there is usually a lot of resources for bees. Now, there are some bees that emerge in March, April, or May. If they emerge in those months and there are no flowers, they're going to die. So I can say as early as possible, but I have seen the frost where even I think last year there was a frost where bees emerged because it was 90 degrees, and then the next week it snowed. And it was quite devastating for some of the bees that emerged early.
mhm.
So I guess in short summary, as early as you can without, wasting money, but at least pre-July. June and
Okay.
July is peak bloom for bees.
Okay. That's very helpful for my
Yeah.
mindset of that. Okay. And then my other question is, when you are talking about posting to that map, if I
Yes.
have like I can have some sort of bee wasp something. I mean, now I have a better understanding of like trying to identify it.
Yeah.
But if I have something and I'm trying to do that, but I have no idea what I'm looking at,
Mhm.
and I post a picture, is it just about me posting a picture and somebody else identifies it or
You know
tries
what?
to
I
helps
forgot to
me?
mention that. So thank you for asking. So I'll speak specifically about iNaturalist because you can post any animal or plant on iNaturalist. You can choose what you think it is, but there are also researchers that will go on there and confirm it, and then
Okay.
it becomes research grade and can be used for data.
Okay. Okay.
So thank you for asking that. I did forget to mention that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I understand that you are also a photographer. Did you take some of these pictures?
The photos on the screen I did, yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. That's actually what got me into bees. So in Nevada, I was studying zoology, and I always like taking pictures of flowers. And I'm like, man, what is this buzzing thing going on? So I got introduced to taking photos of flowers, and then I learned a bit more about bees. And well, apparently I love them because now I'm doing a whole PhD on them.
Ronnie,
Question.
our bees, I'm not aware of any bees nests in my immediate yard, but, that makes me wonder, do bees travel quite a distance or are they pretty local?
So again, depends on bees. Big bees like bumblebees and honeybees can travel, I think, maximum 5 kilometers. I unfortunately don't know what that is in feet and yards. But it's a big distance. Whereas solitary bees can only go maybe a couple yards over. Because they're so small, they try to keep their resources and their house really close, so they don't travel that far. So it's important for them to have floral resources and nesting resources close by.
I think Roberta had a question.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I have put out mason and bee hotels for years.
Mhm.
I don't get much action. I'm always jealous when I've gone to the Bee Palooza and their bee hotels. They're overbooked.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I have vacancies over here. But I'm wondering what during what I would say off season, during the time when the bees have left the hotel, which would be like April and May. I mean, the rest of the time it's occupied. Should I be doing something to sanitize, or should I maintain? So some of the hotels I have use paper straws.
Mhm.
And I've learned, I have a friend I'm blind, and there's a lot of things I don't observe on my own, but I have a friend who made a small, used like 1/4 inch hardware cloth to cover the front of it because predators were finding the larvae in the honey to be a very attractive food source. And so I would come out and find the whole thing dismantled and the straws all over the ground. But so some of them have paper straws, but some of them are made commercially with shafts of bamboo. So there's nothing to remove or to replace. And I read something recently that about trying to keep it clean and avoid parasites. And so I'm curious about your comments.
Yeah, I think everything you said is very on par. Bee hotels have become a pro and a con because a lot of people will just put them out and leave them be. But like I said, they're solitary bees, so they don't live in large numbers typically. So parasites are a problem. I recommend taking care of them maybe twice a year. You do have to find the sweet spot between when they're being occupied and when they're not. So I recommend people have extra stems. For the native bee hotel at MSU in the horticulture gardens, I actually take care of those. And we have backup stems. So what I do is in the spring, all of the stems that are enclosed with mud or leaves or grass, whatever the bee or even wasp uses, I take them out and I put them in a separate box, and then I put fresh tubes in. So that will limit parasitism or nectar robbing or different kinds of things.
Okay.
I think if you're not having good vacancies or stays at your bee hotel, it may be a matter of which way your hotel is facing. So they prefer to have sun in the morning so that they can warm up and leave rather than the afternoon.
Mhm.
I believe that means it's a north facing hotel, but I should probably check that before I say that. Let's see. What else did you say?
Well, I just wondered in the hotels, the bee hotels that are made of bamboo and there's
Oh,
nothing
yes.
removable.
Yes.
Is there a maintenance thing to do there, or are those just not a good idea?
So I would say a combination of the both. Paper straws have been proven to be detrimental because parasites can get in and out of the paper straws. So what some people have been doing now is, if you've heard of Phragmites, it's an invasive plant here. You can kind of cut it up into reeds, and then you put the paper straw inside of whatever hard stem you have. So that way, once the bee has left, you can take the paper straw out and throw it away or recycle it, and then put another one in, and that helps with the cleaning process as well. But I would say no
Okay.
paper straws by themselves.
Oh, okay. And what about so you're suggesting putting paper straws in the hotels that are made of bamboo, shafts of bamboo?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Let me see if I can go back to the photo here. So this little bee hotel has different materials. It has the kind of bamboo Phragmites type. I would recommend putting paper straws in here because then it's easier to clean. Otherwise, you can get like a bottle cleaner or something and clean those out. You did mention the mesh, and I would say we don't recommend using mesh on hotels unless you have a problem, because the mesh can disorient bees in getting into where they need to go. But if you have somebody's getting in and eating the bees, then that's obviously more detrimental.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's 1/2 inch hardware cloth, so it's a
Yeah.
crisscross pattern, but and you're saying that what might confuse them too?
Yeah, I've seen bees try to navigate the wire, and they sometimes catch on it thinking it's flat, but it's not, and they just kind of spin in circles. I mean, it looks kind of cute, but it's bad.
Yeah,
So we recommend only if it's necessary.
okay. All
Or you
right,
could
great,
even
thank
do
you.
yeah, you can do like this one where they have some sections are hardwired and some are not.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Hope that helps, and I hope you have some better luck.
Any other questions?
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Hey, Ronnie, I put a picture in
Ooh.
the chat
Yeah.
of, can you tell me what those are?
A honeybee and a skipper butterfly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I
I'm
will
happy to
put.
report
Oh, go ahead.
that my microphone is acting up. No, actually, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. We just got some signs in last week. And if I can figure out how to share my screen properly. If you can see that or
Ooh.
not.
Those are beautiful.
We have a variety of signs available. And shoot. Sorry, guys. Can you see the signs, or am I not sharing
Yes.
properly?
Yes, we can see the signs.
Okay. Those are available free of charge if you've got a pollinator garden that you want to sort of designate with a sign. And part of the approach here is that rather than just look like it's unintentional, you can highlight it with a sign and illustrate to the lawn police that you are actually intentional about your flower garden. So let me know if you're interested in one of those if you haven't already. We've got a few different styles. And
Oh, it's blurry because of your.
unfortunately, you can't.
There we go.
We don't have No May yet in Meridian.
Yeah, I couldn't remember which county just passed it.
East Lansing is
It
doing
was?
it,
Okay.
or
Okay.
has done it, and they had a request for about 300 signs.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not sure they're going to do it again, but it was a learning opportunity, I believe, for East Lansing.
Mhm.
I just want to say for No Mow May, I, want to highly encourage it, but yet as an association president, we are working to try to lessen the mowing in our like common area. And we had our mowing company almost quit on us. So it's just a difficult process to, to figure out how to do it and still be successful. So and I say that just as a bigger picture, like people might want to do it, but it's not it makes it hard to mow when you do actually start mowing. It's just, so hopefully we can get to a place that we can get better about it, of maybe like having patches of our lawns that we don't mow. I think
That's
that for
exactly
me
what I would
is the piece that I think will be more successful than not mowing at all. Because as in my association, you have to mow. So, or, in our township, whatever, we have to mow. So I'm hoping that that's what we will get to more, is just having patches that we allow that make it look like we aren't just neglecting, that allow us to also still be able to get through the lawn after a certain amount of time. So anyway.
Our code enforcement officers are actually very tolerant if it looks intentional. So there's a variety of ways to make your pollinator garden look intentional. And that can include like mowing certain parts of your lawn and not mowing others, like you're saying, Sarah. Signage, pathways, mulch. There's a variety of approaches.
I would say not mowing like the border is probably the easiest for both those trying to help bees and the mowing company, because you can just put up flags or something to block it off and it's easy. If you have a lot of different patches, it might be difficult for them, or they might just mow it anyway, which I've seen happen before.
Are there other things people can do to support pollinators?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's almost a good problem to have. There is a lot of different things you can do. I would say ground nesting bees are probably in the most need in cities, because they need open ground. And, we put lawn on things, we put cement on things. Even mulch is difficult for them because sometimes they can't move it out of the way. I would say in fall time, leaving your leaves, whether you rake it off to one side or you leave it all over your yard. Like I said, overwintering bumblebee queens nest under that, but also fireflies and different caterpillars use that leaf litter to kind of tough out the winter underneath.
It's been
Comment?
another big conversation. Go ahead, Roberta.
Thank you. I just read a book recently that it's called We Are the Ark, ARK. ARK stands for Acts of Restorative Kindness. I haven't done much research on it, but apparently there's a international movement to move patches of land back to exactly what we're saying, just so it's native. It's all native species. It doesn't have to be real big. It could be, a square yard, or it could be a whole lawn. But that's another place to look under the acts of restorative kindness.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, but that's exactly what we would hope. I mean, the perfect answer is we need to just take down all the buildings and then the bees will come back. But obviously that's not going to happen. So we have to find a way to work together with them, and definitely restoring some of the land that we have developed is the best way, and creating some connectivity, especially for bees like bumblebees, where they can travel large distances. If you have a park in New York City, they can't go much further than that because they can't fly around those big tall skyscrapers. I know that's an extreme example, but we need to increase the connectivity in some way.
We should have the fairy bog mother attend one of these dialogues sometime.
Yeah, maybe I need to reach out to them.
Some of our best guests are referrals from other speakers, so I'm sure you have some good connections. And speaking of which, next week we're going to have an open dialogue. If anyone's going to be around, talk a little bit about a green campaign that we'll be launching next year to promote some of these types of things. So it's more of a brainstorming session. We don't have an official speaker next Wednesday, but the week after, Carolyn Miller, who's been doing some invasive species removal and planting pollinators around campus, is going to be with us, and that should be interesting. She was referred by Laura Young, and you're nodding your head, Ronnie. Are you?
Yes, I love Carolyn. She's amazing. We had her at Bee Palooza as our native plant specialist. She's a great person and she knows her stuff. So it's been great to work with her.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Rachel Stolen from our communications team has some ideas about this green campaign, and she'll be joining us. Can I have a quick show of hands of who might be around next week, or are you taking the week off? One offsite, one onsite. Maybe. Okay. Well, I hope you'll join us. Kim, you had a question.
I expect to be.
Oh, no, I was just raising my hand for you.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Carolyn Miller is the one that's helping Cornell Woods with the pond, all the plantings and stuff. So yeah, she's great.
Oh, wow. Small world.
Yeah, she's really involved, and I think she records all the plants on campus. So I don't know, she's a big deal, I guess.
Does anybody have any related or unrelated comments or questions? Ronnie, this has been very rich, informative conversation.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't too much. I always worry. So it's a lot of information.
I think you're a great presenter, and your pictures are amazing.
Ooh, that looks like a bumblebee in some sort of squash. Love the photos. Yes, it is. If you just sit here and send me photos and I identify them, I'm fine with that too.
I'm curious what you're hoping to do once you've got your PhD. Like, are you going to continue with research, or what do you think for long term?
I don't think I'll continue in research. I think it's vital, but it's a little bit behind the scenes for me. I mentioned the Xerces Society that does conservation. That would be my dream job. In undergrad, I did natural resource sustainability and wildlife ecology. My goal has always been to apply the knowledge in the field and actually make a difference.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
I have a fairly large wood pile because I burn wood in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of years ago, it's an east-facing wood pile. And then I have a tarp that will roll down over it to cover it so that it will protect from the elements. And in adding some additional wood during the summer, I rolled that thing up and it was like a swarm of solitary bees in there. And they had drilled all these little 1/8 inch holes in my firewood. And it was phenomenal. I just left the tarp up after that. And every time I go by there, it was like a swarm going on.
Oh, wow.
I was reluctant to burn that firewood the next winter. Because I was afraid there might be overwintering larvae in there.
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
I mean, if you're fine with leaving it, it's not a problem, but you need your firewood. So some people recommend using orange extract because some wood cavity nesting bees don't like orange extract. I would say if they were small bees are not capable of making their own holes. So that means there was something else living in your wood before they got there. There are carpenter bees, which is the biggest bee in North America that can actually chew through wood, but they are semi-social, so they're more of a colony. I think it depends on the size of bee that you had.
Hmm.
But
Well-
if you want to set aside some for them and some for you, I would put maybe orange extract on a pile, or you can completely enclose it if
Yeah.
that makes you feel safer.
Well, it seemed like everything that I had split ahead of time,
Mm.
they didn't touch that. It was the intact logs, smaller diameter stuff that that they seemed to like. But you know, they were small. You know, the holes were only like 1/8 of an inch, so carpenter bees make bigger holes than that.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
must
so
have
that
had,
means some sort of beetle or something was living in the wood prior to the bee.
okay.
Yeah. So that made it perfect home grounds for them.
Yeah, well, I had enough wood that I was able to leave that for that winter.
Yeah.
And use the other stuff. So,
Yeah.
but
That's good.
I've not seen it since. So,
Mm.
of course, I split everything else before I stack it.
Yeah, they do need a certain depth. So that might help because if it's not the right diameter and depth, they won't use it.
Mhm.
I will also say cavity nesting bees, if you just chop some stems, like some thicker plants that are hollow on the inside, they'll use vertical stems as well, and that might be a good alternative to your wood.
Now I have an area, I've got a typical suburban lot, but where three lots come together, it's kind of a wooded area, really small wooded area. And grass won't grow back there. There's just too many trees, a lot of
Mm.
pine trees. And I'm wondering, that would seem to be maybe a good place because there's bare ground. But is there something that one would do to maybe increase the likelihood that bees might like it, or?
Do you know if you're close to any flowers outside of your?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
Okay. I would say that bumblebees, not all bumblebees, but most of them have their colonies in wooded areas. Because they can fly further distance, they typically live in the forest and fly to a field. For smaller bees, like I said, they would need to be pretty close to flowers.
Okay.
But they are more above ground, so they like fields. So it depends on what your goal is. I would say if your aim is like helping bumblebees, the leaf litter is probably a good thing, or any sort of non-wooded mulch would be good for that. Or planting flowers in another area if you could.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Ronnie, this is Kim, the person that's put the pictures in.
Yeah.
Couple of times I've had, I think there's some kind of hornet or yellow jacket nesting in the ground and, discovered when you were mowing the grass, and I'm usually too busy running to try and figure out what they are. Is there an easy way to differentiate between which are bees and which are yellow jackets when you're not actually looking at them?
Well, you have to look at them. I will say if they were nesting in the ground, unfortunately, yellow jackets are the most aggressive on like a scale of,
Yeah,
calm
they
to
sting
aggressive.
pretty quickly.
Yeah, they're very territorial of their ground. Not all wasps are like that, but yellow jackets for sure. And a lot of yellow jackets are also invasive. They're European and they're not meant to be here. So they don't have any natural predators. It's just their instinct to attack everything. I would say that's probably a good indicator if you just got close and you were being chased, because most underground bees aren't going to be that aggressive. Solitary bees are really docile because they live by themselves. They don't have the energy and the resources to sacrifice if they sting you. Which, by the way, I didn't mention, honeybees are the only bees that die when they sting. So the other 19,999 don't die. They can sting you multiple times, but it's still energetically costly. Like venom is hard to produce. It takes a lot out of them. They can get hurt or killed if they get stuck. So they don't want to sting you. For some reason, yellow jackets are the anomaly in that. I would say if they're bright yellow and black, that's probably a case of a yellow jacket, whereas honeybees are more of like a golden brown. Bumblebees are more black than yellow. But again, there's so much variety. You really have to get a good look at them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a cool little video that I want to just share real briefly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that.
Not yet. Oh, bumblebee on a bee balm. Oh, love it.
That's my front yard.
Perfect. So that bee balm is the #1 visited plant for bumblebees. They love it. If there's anything you choose to plant, I would say it's bee balm. It's called wild bergamot normally, but it's also called bee balm in my world for obvious reasons, because it is buzzing when you have some bee balm.
I think you have a patch of that in your yard, don't you, John?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's frequently visited. Lots of bees.
Yes. And that's a midsummer bloom, so it's June or July is when it's really in bloom.
Did you say wild bergamot?
Yes, it's used
Okay.
in teas as well.
Okay, thank you.
There's also purple cone flower, which is called echinacea, which is also used in teas. It's almost like bees know what they're talking about. That bees love as well, and I think is a really pretty flower. Yep, look at that. Ooh, that's a solitary bee. You can tell because of the it's a female because you can tell because of the pollen, but her pollen is all over her leg, whereas solitary bees kind of pack it in a little ball. I believe it's a sweat bee of some kind, but I could be wrong.
Oh,
For the person who commented about yellow jackets, there are several services in the area who will come and capture those. They use them they collect the venom. One of them is called ROCK, ROCK''S, free hornet and yellow jacket removal. But if you check online, I think you can probably find someone who will come and remove those for you. And the people that I used collected them, and they get enough payment for the venom that they collect that there was no charge for them to take them away. They were more than happy to come. I had some hornet nests too close to where I was. Not that I don't like hornets, but
I had a nest in my front lawn this last summer, and I used my shop vac. I just put the hose where the bees were going in and out of, left it running for about an hour, and after a while there were no more bees. I think the queen was, and the larva was still in there, but they had no workers to bring them any forage.
Oh wow, that's a technique I wouldn't recommend, but I'm glad it worked.
yep.
Because they could probably climb out. Kim, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, Roberta, I put his web address in the chat, but I retired from FedEx, and Travis Rockefeller is the guy's name. And he actually, similar to what you just said, sucked them out with a vacuum hose, put them on ice, and shipped them to FedEx, through FedEx to labs to develop antivenom.
he's the one. Yeah, thank you.
He used to come in with big styrofoam boxes of yellow jackets and other wasps.
Wow.
I noticed on your website that you did some prairie restoration with starting with cardboard on the ground. Is that a project that you were involved with?
So I didn't do the restoration, but I did collaborate with another student in plant biology. So she did a pocket prairie, which is a 3x3 kind of meter square. She started with cardboard smothering out the lawn. And then the next year she planted native flowers. So black-eyed Susan, purple cone flower, goldenrod, Culver's root, all those good things. Her project is testing if that restoration is effective in urban areas. And I joined to see what the bee community was like before and after the planting. So that's her dissertation, and I just looked for bees there.
Is that local?
Yes, she only samples in Lansing. She has about 40 gardens, churches, different things. She has a lot of sites that she goes to, all in Lansing.
Who is that? The name again?
Her
it's
name
on
is
your web-
Emily Conway.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, which I would say she might be a good reference to speak about that.
Sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of speakers, does anybody have any topics or speakers that they might suggest for a future dialogue? Or would you like to speak about a topic or project that you're involved with to get some input from like-minded and different-minded people? I know we want to hear more about your projects, Sarah, at some point. Your pond restoration.
I'm getting there and then I will. Yeah, we're getting closer.
And Ryan, I want to hear about your success with your cardboard. Ryan took a lot of cardboard out of my office after we moved and is promising to put it down on his lawn.
I'm mostly
So,
using it to try to keep the poison ivy from growing back. But I'll be growing the gardens too.
Leroy, this is Roberta. I'd love to have somebody come and talk about for the average homeowner who lives in the city with a green lawn that's getting mowed every week, how to begin to convert some of that. You know, it's sort of like, it's like I want to eventually convert my lawn so it's not a green lawn being mowed, but I don't really know where to start.
Well, I'm sure you'll get some advice from some of the people around on this call. I know one of the themes that came up when we had who was the young gentleman who came in the spring, I believe. He sells plants at the market, and also a seasoned veteran who spoke. Just starting small was sort of one of the tips that I got.
Yeah, the cardboard method is definitely a well-supported, cheap, and reusable method. I mentioned the Michigan Wildflower Farm. The owner of that is Esther, and she does seed collections and different conversion workshops. So she might be a good person to bring. She recommended to me doing cardboard in the spring and taking it off every 30 days so that the grass will grow, and then you smother it and kill that seed bed, and then you take it off and kind of repeat the process. So I would say that might be a good place to start to kill your lawn, and then planting seeds or full plants in the fall.
Could you explain that again?
Yeah. So in the spring, at the beginning of the season, once the grass starts growing, you'll smother it with cardboard or tarp or whatever. It'll overheat, but it also won't be able to get oxygen. And then after 30 days, you take off that material so that the next seed bed will grow and turn into plants. And then again, you're going to smother it for 30 days. So typically, go ahead.
How long would you leave it off?
I think it's a 30-day on and off is what they said.
Oh.
I'm just relaying information. So this is what I know from Esther and those that work with her. But that's what she recommended when I asked her.
And then you do that
Okay.
like all summer? Or how to like
I think it was
happens-
just for spring.
Oh.
But you wouldn't, if you're seeding, you wouldn't seed until fall anyway. And if you're going to be planting whole plants, it's best to do it in summer or the spring of the following year. So it is a fairly lengthy process, unfortunately.
So that's the process for getting grass to stop growing.
Yes, is to smother it on and off a
Okay,
couple of months.
thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Kim again. I hadn't heard about the on and off with the cardboard method. What I heard was to put the cardboard down and then put a couple inches of mulch on top so that the cardboard, of course, doesn't blow away.
Yeah.
But the cardboard eventually just decomposes, and enriches the soil. One of the problems with putting any kind of plastic or tarp down is that 99.9% are made of plastic, and the plastic then breaks down and becomes microplastics that get into the soil.
Yes.
Mm.
The unfortunate thing is commercially grown plants, they use plastic because it's cheaper to make and you can make it in large quantities. But I recommend to just the everyday homeowner to use cardboard. MSU has recycling facilities. You can take the cardboard. You can go to any Walmart and get cardboard, or you can be like Ryan and take someone else's boxes. I get boxes from my lab. So I recommend the cardboard method for those exact reasons, but there are commercial facilities that use the tarp. And the tarp is technically more efficient at killing the plants because it also heats it up more than cardboard would because it's like a vacuum seal for the tarp.
When I did the tarp and I did white plastic, it just created an absolute greenhouse. So it did not work for me. So I'm excited to see if I can make the
Okay.
cardboard work because I did that and it just kept growing and lifting the plastic. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was terrible. But so I'm
geez.
interested to see.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say
that happened to me too.
yeah, the cardboard works fairly well. Even just for managing, weeds and stuff and everything, you can use it for yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I have cardboard down now. I just moved into a house and I have cardboard down. I've had it down all winter, but I'm going to do the on and off thing in the spring after I heard about that little trick.
Also, even just doing like the spreading the leaves, like there was a certain area where we grew some pumpkins this year, and the soil was super rich just because I had the leaves there for maybe a season or two, just a thin layer, not super thick, but that worked really well just for building soil too.
Yeah. Leaf litter is a really good mulch and it's
Yeah.
good for the plants and bees and other things. So it's a great idea.
Well, Ronnie, I hope you'll come back and join us for future conversations. Thank you everybody for your good questions.
Yeah, thank you. And the photos. Thanks, Kim and Leroy.
Any other parting comments, Bruce?
Oh, I was just gonna say Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everyone.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for the information.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Good luck.
Take care. Thank you.